First of all, thanks for joining us for our Basis Wednesday webinar today. My name is Russell Seymour. I'm the Chief Executive of Basis. Many of you will know me, but I know we've got a few new people on the call as well. Very brief background to Basis. We're a membership organisation, and we're here to provide services to our members, to put information out to anybody in the UK sports sector that wants to understand more about sustainability, how it impacts sport and what we can do. So we actually believe sustainable sport can help us build a better future for everybody across society. And we're here to empower sport in the UK to become a world leader in sustainability, but with that urgency that's dictated by the science, we need to be doing things. Just this morning, the Committee on Climate Change have launched an independent assessment of climate change risk for the UK, and what they've concluded is that we're actually less well prepared for the impacts of climate change than we were 5 years ago when they wrote their previous report. They feel the climate change impacts are outstripping mitigation efforts that we're putting in place, and they're quite clear that they feel that the government isn't acting fast enough, and they've made the tone of their report to be quite critical to try and induce that extra activity that we need. So Basis is here to try and do that for the sports sector, to try and work across all elements, not just climate change, but work across all elements of sustainability. So we want to introduce the principles, educate, share best practice. We're all about facilitating collaboration and conversation. That's partly what these webinars are about. We want to use sport to influence and educate our fans and our participants. And we want to advocate to government and to influence policy, and also to act as an intermediary between our members and the media. So today we've actually got a Premier League football club that is absolutely acting on a lot of these issues. They've taken these sustainability issues seriously, and they've created a genuine broad sustainability strategy and policy. So we've got Caroline Carlin, who's Operational Standards and Compliance Manager, and Tim Greenwell, who's Chief Legal and Risk Officer for Southampton Football Club. And they're here to talk about the halo effect, which is their comprehensive sustainability strategy. So as we go along, please ask any questions by posting them in the chat as we go along. Do keep yourselves muted, please, so we've got no background noise. But ask your questions by posting them in the chat. I might come back to you and ask if you're happy to unmute and come on and ask your question in person, or I might just interject them into the conversation as we go. We will have time at the end, we hope, for a general Q&A. So do please stay on mute, as I've said. And we suggest that you switch to speaker view, so to get the best effect from this. So I am going to hand over to Caroline.
Thanks, Russ. Nice introduction, and good morning, everybody. Really nice to be speaking to you today about the halo effect. When I talk about the halo effect, we refer to it very much as a journey we've embarked upon, and I know that journey can sometimes be a bit of a cliche, but when we look back to the last couple of years, there's no other way to describe it really. From where we came from to where we are now, a lot of learning along the way, some really important relationships and networks built along the way as well, and so we look forward to telling you more about that. So just going to share my screen. So bear with me a second. Okay, so let me know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yep, all good. Just click on from the beginning at the top. There we go. There you go.
Okay. So the halo effect, playing the right way today for a better tomorrow. I'm going to talk you through where we started and how the halo effect was formed. So bear with me a second. So the journey so far, are you being ambitious enough? That's a really, really key pivotal quote in our journey, and I'll come to that shortly. So back in 2019, at that time, we had lots of good intentions at the club, and like many organisations, there were pockets of work going on already. And these were all across the organisation in small bits. So we had a staff group that were forming and talking about what can we do that's more environmentally friendly. It was things such as, let's try meat-free Mondays at the stadium for staff. Let's put in some more recycling bins. We also embarked on changing over to reusable water bottles and coffee cups so that we were using less plastics on our site. And we took part in the Premier League's Pass on Plastic initiative, which was a really good way of taking a step in that direction, where we more publicly were saying, right, we're going to make a positive change for the environment. So these things were fantastic. They were making small changes across the organisation and across our sites, but they weren't underpinned by any sort of strategic approach. We didn't have a definitive plan in place that was the backdrop to these changes. But everyone knows in society that we should be more environmentally aware and make changes where possible, but there was nothing to measure against or to work towards in that sense. And at that time, we didn't really talk that much about what we were doing at that point. We also had things such as changing over to a fully LED floodlit stadium, which we did talk about a little bit, and that was great. And things in the concourses that were fan-facing, fans would see, obviously plastic straws were no-go, cutlery was changed to wooden cutlery, we got rid of all of the little single-use sachets. So those things were fan-facing, but we weren't sending out lots of messages to fans that, we're really trying to make an impact here in regards to environmental impacts. Obviously, we had environmental compliance to consider. So within my role, that became something we were looking at. We were working with consultants to measure how we were performing in this space and really understand some of our data, which at that point weren't capturing in any structured way for this purpose, but that we knew we needed to take much more seriously. So as I say, not specifically a strategic plan. We'd started to notice, though, that we were starting to be asked questions, what we were doing. Where is your strategy? Where is your policy? What is Southampton doing? This was coming from the press. This was coming from fan groups. This was coming from people looking to book an event at the stadium, and also potential new corporate partners. And looking around us, we didn't really have anything to provide at that point that described our approach as a club. So we were starting to become a lot more aware that we needed to do some work in this area.
I think, Caroline, sorry, just to chip in on that one, I think, hi, morning, everybody. I think just on that one, even to reach 2019, it had already been a bit of a pathway through. My background initially was kind of in automotive, where by necessity we were doing quite a lot of work in terms of carbon offsetting and environmental strategies and sustainability strategies. But there wasn't really an opportunity kind of pre-2019, I think, to really look at this within sport. There were very few doing it really well. I think overseas there are a few in terms of Wolfsburg and others. And in the UK, obviously Forest Green are really well documented. But actually trying to introduce this to the club at that point would have been quite tough, to say the least, and a real challenge. I think that a bit of a turning point came locally on it in terms of the Green City Charter for Southampton. But even then, it was really kind of initial first steps into this area. And as Caroline says, there were a lot of different threads that maybe didn't flow together. And I think that flows really into that first Premier League sustainability table.
Absolutely. I think this was the first time there was a real spotlight, a real public spotlight on actually what is your football club doing for sustainability. And we'd never been measured in that way before, in such a public way. And I don't think it was ever intended to be a naming and shaming, but when you find yourself at the bottom of it, it certainly feels a bit like that. And you realise, gosh, we've fallen behind here and we didn't even realise it, So I think this was a turning point for us, definitely, like Tim says, for us to be able to say, we don't want to be at the bottom of the sustainability league table, especially when we really want to do well at this. And that's because the approach, as I say, needed to be a lot more structured, a lot more strategic at that point. I mean, I don't know what you know about the sustainability league table, why it's positive, but it gives a bit of an indication here on the side about what we were being measured against. And so when questions were being asked, and because we weren't documenting what we were doing, we weren't able to provide enough evidence or kind of information about what we were doing and what we were planning to do in future to score us any higher than this. So we had to take that on the chin and vow to absolutely do everything we can to do better next year.
Yeah.
So
and I think it gave us that opportunity to improve. And I think that probably if there's one core message that I would really pass on from this is actually embrace that opportunity. At that point, we could have kind of gone one of two ways, really. Said, well, stuff it, we don't care, and we disagree with it, or actually kind of embrace it and use it as an opportunity to actually put all of the sustainability agenda onto our board agenda and start to build a working culture around it. I think that this really kind of gave us that really good push. I think the other thing internally is that we're quite values driven, and internally there's always a lot of references to our vision, our values, and how we want to work. And so actually this gave us the opportunity to say, look, we're saying all of this stuff, let's make it happen. And I think that actually getting that energy, using the timing as well was important, and really using that opportunity to build something that was genuinely across the club. You know, I think that we could have introduced this piecemeal, but actually by being a bit braver, as we'll go into kind of in a minute, we were able to start to really look at all of our activities and how we interact with the world around us and the communities around us, be those at the local level or more broadly.
Absolutely. So from that point, we knew we had work to do, like Tim said, and we decided to completely review it, exactly as Tim just said there. We had a lot of work to do. We decided to, in order to create a strategic approach, we needed to relook at the group of people that were involved in those conversations. And it's really important in any organisation that you have champions, you have people that are naturally passionate. But when you get to the point where you need to create a strategic approach, it was important that we had management throughout the organisation who would be able to implement these key changes and the new approach and embedding the culture involved in it from the very, very start. So from there, early 2020, before the pandemic hit, we created a sustainability leadership group, which was headed up by two directors, which includes Tim and also David Thomas, who's our commercial director. So that was a crucial moment for us, because it was a real statement to the rest of the club. And we weren't talking publicly at this point because we were so at the very early stages of this journey. So we'd grouped together to talk about, okay, the story so far, what have we been doing? We talked about the sustainability league table. We talked about our vision. And at this point, I really must stress that we were still very much looking at the environment and about being green. And we looked at Forest Green Rovers, and we looked at other clubs that were doing better on the league table and said, what are they doing and what can we do? And at that point, as I say, it really was very, very early stages in deciding the angle, the approach we would take. So at that point, the group was worked on creating a strategy, and specifically we decided to really embark on some key areas. We signed up as a founding signatory to something called the Green City Charter, which is a Southampton City Council-led initiative. It's a pledge to being net zero carbon by 2030. Quite a statement by a city that has a port, has an airport, has a lot of traffic, and has challenges with air quality, but a real big statement there. And we, as a large organisation in the business with a lot of followers and a lot of people, a lot of eyes on us, were one of the founding signatories alongside some of those other organisations. That was probably the first time that we made such a public pledge and statement that we were going to do better. So at that point, we've said, right, we've signed up to this. We have to now back up that pledge with action. It isn't just a tick box exercise for us. We really mean this. And we also recognise that with such a large platform, we could not only make changes that would have direct impact, because we're doing it at the club, and the amount of impact our operations and the way that we run our business affects the city locally, but also the wider impact of people watching what we're doing and potentially taking that information away and making changes themselves. So it really started to sink in that, you know, this was going to have a much wider impact. With that in mind, we started to build a new network, a network of relationships with key organisations, advisors, other businesses within the sports world, but also outside of the sports world, locally, not so locally. That for us involved going along to the Sport Positive Summit, which was a really fantastic event, and that for me certainly linked me up, for example, with Russell and Chris from Basis. From there, we became members of Basis. It was a no-brainer for us, a fantastic network and an opportunity to learn for best practice from others. We also joined up to the Southampton Travel Planning Network, so we could look at our match day travel plan and understand more about what's going on in the city and how we can be part of that and be part of positive change in that space. We also became involved with IEMA, the Institute for Environmental Management and Assessment, and from there we did some training with them. We became corporate partners with them, which opened up lots of resources for us to learn and understand more about sustainability from an environmental viewpoint. And along with that, from there, we really did start to get a real picture about the work we could do in the space. So we created at that time a strategy that we were quite happy with. It was very environmentally focused. It had key pillars of parts of environmental compliance and environmental actions, and we sent that out to people that we trusted and respected and wanted some opinions and some sort of feedback from, and we shared that out, as I say, and some of the feedback was really positive, really, really encouraging, saying, you know, we're so glad that you're doing this, really, really impressed that you're doing this. But actually, a key piece of feedback at that time, which came from Earth to Ocean actually, was hang on a minute, are you being ambitious enough? Let's look at this. You've got this huge platform. Loads of people are watching what you're doing. This is all really great stuff, but are you being ambitious enough? And it was such a key bit of advice there, because when I took that back to the group, particularly to the directorship, everyone looked at it and said, you know what, we're playing this quite safe, aren't we? We're making a statement that we're going to make these changes, but these are things we know we can definitely do and they're achievable in the next 2 to 3 years. But actually, if we put together a 10-year strategy in line with the Green City Charter's pledges and in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and actually look more holistically about what does sustainability really mean, it's more than just environmental. And another piece of information, a piece of advice was that sustainability is about people and planet. And from that, we kind of went back to the drawing board, and that's where the halo effect was created. I mean, Tim, have you got any further kind of stories from the time when that?
I think that, yeah, I must admit, I think that feedback was key, and I think that's kind of key to our approach in terms of we're always open to that challenge. And I think that for us, I think there have been several iterations of our strategy, and you know, I think that at one point we were pretty pleased with it when we sent it out, and then actually got kind of the feedback coming back, and actually that again was really about us being open to that challenge, and I think that was useful in terms of what came next. I think that previously we'd always kind of tried to answer the question ourselves in terms of, okay, do we need all LED lights throughout our stadium? What can we do? Do we need combined heat and power? Do we need a battery? What do we need? And we had kind of that led us to all these different elements coming on. And I think that actually by starting to grow our network, be open to the challenge, be open to kind of new ideas, then that started to lead us in some different directions in terms of how we could use technology, but actually how we could start to look outside of the parameters that I knew existed at the time, and others knew about as well. I think in the background as well, COVID probably helped us in terms of it just started to realign our relationships to the community around us. So actually it started to give us the feel of working with both the city council, but also those who were vulnerable around the city as well, and actually really gave us a little bit of momentum in terms of showing what we could do and showing how we could actually start to make a difference. And so that really was the few factors that framed kind of the halo effect and the formation of it.
So with that in mind, we'll introduce to you the halo effect. I can't take any credit for the fantastic name. And those of you who are familiar with our crest, obviously Saints Football Club, our nickname, with our halo at the top there, which really had so much meaning for us. I'll just play you a short video. Hopefully you can all see and hear. Not means play it again. Let me just move on to the next. There we go. Right. So the Halo Effect was launched publicly in amongst a PR launch in January this year, still in the midst of COVID. And along the same time, we announced our signing of the framework, the UNFCCC Sport for Climate Action as well, and the this year's Sport Positive League table, which I'll come on to later, also was launched at the same time. So there was a lot of noise around this at the same time. It was a really good time to launch, start of a new year. Really pleased with the response that we had, the feedback from fans and other groups, and this was the Halo Effect. So just walking you through it, really, we decided to split the Halo Effect into 4 quadrants. And of course, environmental responsibility sits there as a key area for us and a key area of focus, but we've introduced fan responsibility, social responsibility and corporate responsibility. Alongside our launch of this, there was an entire dedicated microsite attached to our website for the Halo Effect, and everything linked to these 4 quadrants. All the stories that we put out across all our channels going forward always link back to that, and we will talk about everything we do that sits within any of these quadrants a lot more, and publicly, even the small things, just to really keep messaging out there, keep the momentum out there. So if I go through to a bit more detail for you, you'll see how we kind of have broken this down. Obviously behind, internally we have templates and documents of all the little minutiae, but we broke down each quadrant into some sort of key areas, really. Each quadrant has its Halo initiative as well, as you'll see they're detailed on this ring.
Did you want me to pick up on that, Caroline, in terms of just how we made that work? Yeah. So yeah, I think that for me, this was key to really look at what our activities are. So what do? We host football matches, we host events, but also all in behind that, what does that actually mean? We produce waste, we use a lot of energy. We operate a training ground, which is near the New Forest, which gives us an opportunity to produce biodiversity and kind of an eco HQ type approach there. We have a lot of different elements going on, from fans to operate in stadiums, to operate in training grounds. So I think that this kind of quadrant approach gave us a really good opportunity to unpack that somewhat. And I think that we used the world around us to frame that a little bit. So I think that a big element there was around responsible gambling. I think that probably not too far removed from launching this, we went actually with a front of shirt gambling partner for the first time, and attracted some attention from a few people in terms of social media. However, with that in mind, we can use that to partner up with the right people to start with, but actually push out messaging about responsible gambling, and actually helping and getting involved in that particular area and those issues. So it's really being realistic about the drivers of our business, what opportunities we have, where our weaknesses are actually, in terms of where we could be shot at a little bit as well. So I think for us it's that openness and being realistic and making change effectively where we can. I think that all of these elements of ours to do that. The idea really behind each of the initiatives and the objectives was to give us something tangible to measure against. So I think having a supported charter in place and reviewing that regularly and making that fair and really pushing that publicly among fan groups to give them a voice as well is kind of something that's easy to measure year on year. Similarly, our homegrown initiative, and Caroline will explain about that, where we plant trees around players making their debut, having through our academy. Again, we can start to manage that and positive impact pledges and as well. So I think that gives us that momentum year on year. I think beyond that, obviously, we've got kind of our longer term goals, and all of these areas are steps towards that. But I think that as we learned from probably previous approaches, I think something like the Green City Charter, which sets us a target of being carbon neutral by 2030, I think in the past we might have just signed up for it and maybe not done very much and waited maybe till 2025 and thought, oh gosh, we've only got 5 years left now, and then had a bit of a flurry of activity. Whereas I think actually having all of our activities set out pretty clearly and looking at where we can make a difference, it really does help us and helps to keep us on track and make sure that we kind of continually evaluate where we're at. I think that probably Peter, in terms of the question you put into the chat, this fits quite well here in terms of the two elements. I think that yes, definitely this is starting to frame our company culture and how we're working. I think that it gives us something that we can tie to beyond kind of vision, values and normal business objectives, but actually this is how we work, this is what we do, and this is what we expect of our staff. And I think that we have started to see that in terms of all of those areas, actually, around being able to ask questions. Is what we're charging our fans fair? Do we think that's right? Have our fans got enough of a voice? How are we managing our waste? And where before we were seeing quite strong pushback in terms of some of the operational areas, I think that actually having a clear strategy and something that's sponsored from top level means that you can't really push against it, because it defines who we are as an organisation and ultimately what we're trying to do. So in terms of that company culture, I think it's been quite positive. I think in terms of changing priorities, maybe a little bit. I think it has certainly pushed from my side in terms of kind of having the reporting line for operations. It's given me the opportunity to do certain work and to carry out certain activities that otherwise might have just fallen away. So in terms of really pushing us towards external accreditations for our environmental management, external presentations around health and safety management, making sure that we cover safeguarding proactively under what we're doing, and I think that actually it pushes those priorities and allows me to take them to board level every time we meet each month. So I think that it has changed that. I think equally in the background it's also helped maintain revenue streams, maybe rather than driving new ones at the moment. I think it's probably too early in terms of the new ones. I think what we have got is we've got some interest from some pretty interesting organisations. So actually, in time there will be a commercial benefit to this, I'm sure. It's not the reason we're doing it or the prime reason we're doing it, but obviously is a factor in what we're doing. So I think that all of those different elements really do come together to to push us in this direction, and to help show the value of putting together really a good, coherent cross-club strategy that defines who we are and how we work ultimately. I think probably just one thing that we were very deliberate on in terms of designing up the halo effect was actually the tone, and we took a very positive, active tone in terms of we do things rather than we will try, or we might do things, or we'll do something in the future. For me, probably with my lawyer's head on, that was quite important in terms of actually making a commitment now and bringing it to life now, rather than parking it off for tomorrow or for a year's time or whenever. So I think that for us that was really key, and has been key to really starting to drive forward some of the progress that we're looking to make.
And if as an area I work really closely on is the environmental quadrant, I'll just give you a bit of an overview of some of the kind of areas we've improved on since launching the halo effect, and in the last kind of 12 months since COVID that we've been underway with. So we've still carried out things like staff beach cleans. We've switched to 100% renewable energy. We've upgraded much of our corporate fleet to hybrid or electric vehicles. We've upgraded many of our lighting fittings to LED as and when they're reaching the end of their shelf life. And any projects we're undertaking, we are making sure that all of that includes environmentally improved facilities such as water heaters with timers and LED lights. We promoted the Cycle to Work scheme, and as more and more people return to sites, we would be promoting that even further with cycle confidence classes and bike doctor sessions again. So those things are in the back burner to come back as we start moving towards hopefully people being back on site more. Our waste has gone zero to landfill, although we still monitor that very closely and making sure that our waste streams are better separated. And so fans, when they return to the stadium for the new season, will see visual changes around our bin areas to kind of reflect that. You know, we really want to make sure our waste streams at point of disposal are really, really clearly defined, so that it better increases the chance of full recyclability of our products.
I think on that one, that's quite key to us in terms of, you know, I think that for us, it's been important to use the teams that are available to us. You know, we've got an internal marketing team there. They're really good at what they do. So, you know, we've got to be brave enough to use them. It's no good me kind of turning up and slapping a sticker on a bin and expecting everyone to use it. It just doesn't work like that. And, you know, I think in terms of building a bit of a brand out, I think that it's been the way for us to go. I think if you look around, I think some of the cricket grounds particularly get this right and do this really well. And you look around and you see the visual impact that actually encourages fans and visitors to really buy into what they're doing, and hopefully what we're doing kind of over the course of the next few seasons, in terms of really bringing it to life and having as much of an impact as we can in terms of people's behaviour, but actually starting to use the opportunities we have to interact with people to build a kind of an awareness among our fans, and awareness among followers of football, and people who visit us also for events at the stadium. So, you know, I think it's using our platform and those that we interact with to really push this and make it look like we really do mean it, which obviously we do.
Definitely, absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. And also, during this process, since September last year, we were working with the University of Southampton, and they've been doing a research project which literally just finished at about the last month, to quantify for the first time our carbon footprint. We'd never measured it before. So when we talk about you know our ambitions to be carbon neutral, actually we didn't really know what our carbon footprint looked like. Where was our biggest areas that we needed to really do a lot of work on, and how would we be able to measure against that going forward? So we had lots of pockets of data and bits and bobs that we could pull together, but that's where the University of Southampton came in for us, and that was a fantastic piece of work led by one of their graduate students, He's been working within the club, as I say, since September, and then presented to the sustainability group and various other representatives across the club his findings, his recommendations, and just provided us with absolutely a real picture of what our carbon footprint looks like. That has been really interesting. And he looked at scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions. So obviously, because we've had COVID in the last year, he went back 3 years and measured it from season 2017 onwards. So that's been a really interesting piece of work for us as well, really key in the environmental pillar part of our strategy. I'm just going to sort of just quickly run through the Halo initiatives I mentioned earlier, and Tim sort of alluded to the homegrown initiative, the tree planting. This has been one that's been met with a lot of interest publicly and internally, and it's a real legacy piece, I think. It's something we were really passionate about, and from the very early stages, before we'd even created the Halo effect, we knew we wanted to be involved in tree planting. And you know, cynics would think it's all about offsetting, and yes, there's an offsetting element to it, which I'll explain, but this is very much, as I say, a legacy piece. It's a real commitment to the city. The Green City Charter pledges to be a cleaner, greener, and more sustainable city. And because we're a founding signatory, we commit to that too. And there's lots of work going on with biodiversity at the training ground. We're doing some work at the moment that will appear around the stadium, but certainly with this, one of the things that we're super proud of and very well known for is the achievements from our academy. There's lots of success over many years now from Southampton Football Academy. And what we decided to do was recognise those achievements with every time an academy player makes their senior debut within the first team, we would plant trees to recognise and celebrate that. But the trees we were planting in Southampton are a gift to Southampton. So we've been working with schools. So far, we've planted 1,250, and they're in schools that our Saints Foundation work closely with. They have community champions within those schools. Actually, one of the schools we've planted in so far actually has one of our female girls team players goes to that school. One of our senior players, Theo Walcott, used to do some evening sessions at that school. So there's lots of links with that. There's a real heart to this project. But at the same time, the amount of trees that we plant in Southampton locally, which are, they're, saplings at this point, and it will take quite a long time for them to grow to maturity and certainly create any carbon credits. As part of this initiative, we then preserve the same amount over in Brazil, in the Amazon region. And from that, we obtain carbon credits. So at the moment, we've obtained carbon credits for 1,250 tons of carbon. But that is I guess, one of the why we did that. But the real heart of it is the planting in Southampton. The school, one of the schools we've planted in, is right next to a really busy road, loads of noise, lots of not much privacy, obviously quite a lot of emissions coming into that playground area. And as part of the planting, we also had our own landscaping team visit the school to carry out the planting with Southampton City Council's planting team. And a number of the children came out and helped plant the trees, and it included an educational session about the importance of trees, what they do for the environment, and talking more about how to care for them and talk about biodiversity. So there was a real education and engagement piece there for us as well. So we literally grabbed that with both hands and just ran with it. So homegrown is something we're all immensely proud of. And then Tim, if you'd like to talk through the positive impact pledge.
Yeah, I think I think that probably with the other three, there's a number of different elements here. So the positive impact pledge was really to look at developing or helping entrepreneurs to develop ideas and either in the community around us, and we have certainly one set of young people there. Or help other entrepreneurs build their ideas and in a challenging business environment. It was an opportunity to really look to give something back to the business community around us and start to build those links. And then then we start to move into kind of the other areas. So Matthew, I think you mentioned the work of Saints Foundation and as a kind of community interest kind of charitable arm. It's been a big driver of what we've done. The work they do is incredible, with some really kind of vulnerable people who do rely on that interaction, and you know, I think that linking up with them very closely, they're very central to what we're doing here. It gives us a chance to really work very closely with some of the groups who may benefit most widely from kind of that interaction. So that is a key element. I think it's important for us not just to push everything their way, though. And you know, I think that in the past maybe that's something that had happened over time, in terms of it was kind of difficult to see where some of the club's own charitable activities started and stopped, and so really bringing some definition there is quite helpful. And you know, we'll continue to work really closely as we do with Saints Foundation. And then obviously kind of finally is Supporter Charter, which again links into the developing world around us, in terms of it will undoubtedly start to look at how we engage with our fans, what kind of voice they have, what kind of say they have in terms of running of the club, what impact they can have there. So, you know, I think for us that's a key area. We were able to start to work on this really somewhat ahead of the curve. It wasn't a reaction to the government in terms of their look at football, or to European Super Leagues or anything like that. You know, we're committed to making sure that our fans feel that they're engaged with, and to offer them the opportunity to have the right voice in terms of interacting with it. So I think that for us that's an important one. It will help to define what we do at the stadium next, in terms of you know, making sure that it's developed to be fit for purpose for kind of 2021 and beyond, you know, up to its life cycle. So again, you know, looking at disabled supporters groups, looking at accessibility, looking at the emerging kind of world around us is important. We've done some work with Autism Hampshire. We've done some work in terms of making sure the colour schemes we use are appropriate within there, in terms of colour blindness or Alzheimer's, and so actually there's lots of different opportunities here, and that's why again it comes back to having that overall framework to work within for us. Otherwise, I think everything could end up getting a little bit lost. We could have just lots of threads and lots of stuff going on without maybe quite understanding why. So, you know, for us that's really important. Probably just to tackle the other question that did come in terms of stadium infrastructure and looking at how that is. Yeah, we've got Cycle Lane, and we're aware of being kind of a big venue in town particularly, which brings challenges but opportunities as well. So for us, we are completely revamping our transport plan. We found a really good partner to work with on that, who has done a lot of work in this sphere for some big stadiums across the world. So, you know, I think that for us, again, it's tapping into that knowledge, using the experts to help move us forward. You know, we could guess it a bit, but actually for such a key area, I think that we'll start to get payback on in terms of doing this work, and that might be through either winning over new fans, winning over kind of that commercial income streams, but actually physical payback in terms of just operating in a much more efficient and effective way. So I think that there are a number of different ways that we can sell this to make sure we get a buy-in at board level and across the club. You know, ultimately, if we're saving money by not burning through 1 million tons of energy, we can spend that money elsewhere. It's a pretty simple message for people to take on board. So, you know, I think that again, it's finding those key drivers to make sure that we speak a language that everyone can understand. You know, we haven't got to go and beat everyone up with environmental law references or anything like that. We can put it in simple terms that everyone can understand.
I agree, but what's interesting is, since we've been talking so much about this, loads of really keen, enthusiastic staff who want to be involved have just raised their hands and said, I want to be part of this. You know, I'm really chuffed that the club are doing this. I'm really proud to be at a club that's taking action. So, you know, that's what's been really interesting, is that even though, yeah, there's some elements that involve a lot of change, there's quite a lot of people that really want this to happen. So we've had quite a lot of support internally from staff from all areas, who've come to us and said, I'm so glad you're doing this. So really good.
And from some increasingly unlikely sources as well,
yeah.
which shows that we're winning, which is good news.
We put a staff sustainability page on our internal intranet site, right? And there's a Halo hint section. People can share things they're doing. Oh, I've switched to a bamboo toothbrush. I've switched to such and such, whatever. And you know, bought litter pickers to go for litter picking with my family at the weekend, and all these sorts of things. You know, trying vegan recipes. Some of our chefs here have shared vegan recipes. People can try that. And all those sort of pockets of work is just getting us talking about it, talking about Earth Day, environment, World Environment Day, all of these things. At the moment, we've been promoting kind of 30 Days Wild for our staff to kind of be part of with their families. But it's all those things, talking about it. And what's interesting is, for example, all staff received something in the post recently, and it had come packaged in all sorts of little bits of bubble wrap and all sorts of things. And a member of staff in the club contacted me and said, oh, you know, could we have a word with this provider about the amount of packaging they've sent us? I really think it might need looking at. It's not in line with what they're saying we're doing. I said, you're absolutely right. You know, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I just really love that the staff throughout the business are feeling really empowered to sort of call something out like that and say, hang on, we're saying we're doing this, and someone we're working with is sending us all this packaging. It's totally unnecessary. Let's let them know that. And absolutely, the department who were involved in that delivery kind of contacted the provider directly and sort of said, look, this is the feedback internally. Can you help us with this in the future? We'd like to see less packaging. We'd like to see more recycled packaging or recycled packaging. Just less, really. And that was a really good conversation. It wasn't, you know, it just was an easy conversation to have. And that is stemmed from a member of staff saying, I don't think this is right, and it's not in alignment with what we're saying we're doing. Thought that was brilliant. Yeah. So yeah, so that sort of thing. And on this page, you'll see some of the supporters of the strategy so far since we've launched it. There's other, obviously, lots. We've spoken to so many people over this time, but these are key relationships that are ongoing for us. The University of Southampton with regards to the carbon footprint research project. IEMA, as I mentioned, we're corporate partners with. They've been really helpful, and they've connected us up to the southern region kind of network, which has been massively important for us for things that we've developed over this time. Basis, of course, has been really important, and actually recently 8 members of staff from the club undertook the 6-week training course with Russell, which I highly recommend. And it was brilliant, because what we're trying to do in order to embed sustainability in the organisation is to provide as much information and opportunities to ask questions and resources and confidence, really, for staff to challenge things and to know what questions to ask. So, for example, we had team members from our procurement team there, we had team members from HR there, you know, and once people are armed with information, and you'll probably all agree with this, as soon as I embarked on a journey into working in sustainability as part of my role, once you know it, you can't unknow it, right? So as soon as it's in your psyche, you just can't dismiss it at all. You're in it now, you know, and that's how we feel, and that's how we're empowering our staff to feel more connected to sustainability and think about it, and it to be one of the decision-making processes as business as usual. It's not an afterthought. It is part of our thought process in everything we do, from projects to daily business as usual, as I say. Obviously, Green City Charter we've referred to a couple of times, and then carbon footprint is who we used for the tree planting and who we're using for the tree planting initiative. So we purchased the trees through them. They arranged the preservation of the trees overseas, and they provide us with the carbon credit certificates. So that's also been a really good support from them. And then Final Straw Foundation is a local anti kind of action against plastics in the ocean group. They're fantastic, constantly doing beach cleans, and we organised the first couple of our staff beach cleans with them, and we'll continue to do so. And that's been a really great support from them from the outset. So excellent. Anything you'd like to add to that, Tim? Any support that you feel that you've received, especially at director level?
I think it's probably covered it, to be honest. You know, I think that increasingly we do challenge our partners that we're working with. I think we've found our voice in this area. We're looking to really work with industry and work with specialists in this area. And I think that, you know, some of our kind of partners in background that work with us on a day-to-day level, either at stadium or training ground, or in starting to look at charging points and really what comes next, then I think that actually having that specialist knowledge that's available to us is really helpful. I think that where we do find the benefits is actually starting to work out our opportunities to lobby, our opportunities for potential funding outside. Don't laugh, given that we're a big bad rich football club, but we're not quite as rich as everyone may believe. But you know, I think for us it's really finding and realizing those opportunities. So you know, it's really important to identify people that you trust, identify people that can bring you a level of knowledge that maybe you don't have internally. You know, we don't know everything.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to this, we've been working a lot with Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust that have been really useful as well. And, you know, we'll be doing blogs with them, and there's lots of shared information about biodiversity that we really want to put out there, and especially with our, you know, really lovely grounds at the New Forest at Staplewood campus. Lots of work, even putting in log pile houses, and lots of work there, wildflower areas. You know, we want to be able to talk about that and sort of say to people, hey, why don't you try doing this in your garden? You know, we intend to, when the season starts, you know, invite the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust down to give out packs of wildflower seeds to our fans. You know, there's things we want to do that engages the fans and says, look, we're doing this at Staplewood, but you could do this at home or in your school. And or even if any other organisations have green areas in their workplace, it's things that are easily done. I wanted to point out that it's the small things too. This is really important because I think sometimes people can feel, and certainly at times we have, overwhelmed at the sheer amount of work that you possibly might have to undertake in order to reach a carbon neutrality goal. But actually, don't forget, doing the little small pockets of quick wins around are always good to do as well, and really achievable. So for us, things like battery boxes and more recycling bins and signage, the staff beach cleans. This like sign here, for example, we've got these dotted around at Staplewood where, you know, we're educating staff, players and visitors to the fact that, well, the reason why this hedgerow is totally left growing wild is because we're trying to encourage biodiversity and create habitats for all this wildlife. And the reason why this bit of grass isn't perfectly manicured is because it's non-playing grass, and therefore we're going to leave it to grow wildly. And these wildflower areas will do this, and these local houses will do this. So it's kind of, we're doing it, and then we're telling people we're doing it, and that is a key part of our strategy, is the education and engagement piece. We've got the light switch stickers, which recently went in across all our sites. Just because we're not in a position to completely change all our lights, we don't intend to change all of our lights in one foul swoop. That's not the wise thing to do at this stage. We will upgrade all our lighting in a structured way, and certainly, as I said earlier, when lighting reaches the end of its life cycle and when we're doing projects. But in the meantime, behaviour change is something we're trying to instill, which is, if you're leaving this office right now, turn the light off. You know, we do have movement sensors in many areas, but there's actually quite a lot of areas where it's a switch still. So that was a really simple change for us to put in.
I think that, yeah, I think all of these just got us started. You know, ultimately they got us going as a business, and you know, I think that there'll be 101 opportunities across any organisation really to start to work in this way, and you know, it's recognising those small opportunities. Just mindful of time. Do we want to just wrap up and give any chance for questions?
Anyway, it's the last one there.
Yeah.
Is where we are now. So in January this year, we came 6th position in the league table. So see, there's some joint.
So it was worth it, albeit we've now got it all to do. I think that for us, you know, we don't want to stand still. We've made pledges in relation to 2030. We've made pledges in relation to the more immediate term. It's important that now we follow up on those. You know, I think that ultimately, internally and in terms of what how we portray ourselves externally, we're not perfect on this at all. We've got definite opportunities to improve. We've got opportunities to improve the infrastructure at our stadium and training ground sites. We've got opportunities to really engage with fans and really engage with communities. So this is really step one of kind of that ongoing cultural change for us. And so, you know, I think that's ultimately where we are now. I think that the league table last year gave us an opportunity to say, look, we've made some good progress here. It's been worth it. And so people didn't go chasing me out of the building, which is always quite helpful. But yeah, you know, I think that probably most important things from my side is in terms of getting this off the ground is identify those small opportunities, get top level buy-in. It can really help. You know, I think that having me and my role involved, having David Thomas, who's our Chief Commercial Officer, involved, really does help. It removes any blockers and really helps push that progress, and means that actually no one can really kick against the culture because it's being led from the top, and that's not being a dictator or telling everyone what to do, but actually giving everyone the chance to shape up what we do next and really buy into that. And that's how we look to build that positive culture. And then in behind that, really just that simplicity of messaging, I think has been key. Matthew, sorry, you popped a question in terms of recognition from Premier League and the FA. Premier League and Sky have been quite helpful. I think Sky kind of got this rolling with Pass on Plastics. I think that's the first time I remember it going on to a senior management team agenda, at least in terms of it was a very visible public campaign that actually started to hold us accountable. So that was quite helpful in terms of getting things moving. Could they show greater levels of leadership on sustainability? I think in the background, the FA and Wembley particularly have done some really interesting work. We've seen some of the data and some of the numbers that come from there around carbon footprint of a match day, around their food offerings, and around kind of people's journeys to get to Wembley. And so I wonder maybe if they could make it a little more public. I think everyone's probably in the same boat on that at the moment in terms of sports, particularly where I don't know. I guess for us, we're being quite visible, so we're there to be shot at now, and so we've got to make sure we keep making progress. Whether there's a bit of a fear of that, I'm not sure. But actually, yeah, you know, maybe it is the time for everyone to really stand together. I think that as a collective, particularly Premier League clubs and even in CFL,
I agree.
can really make a difference.
I would just say on the Pass on Plastic initiative was a really powerful group momentum to work together as clubs where, yes, on the pitch we're competitors, but in sustainability we're on a level playing field. We want the same thing, the same result. We could achieve a lot more work together, which is where the Sport Climate Action Framework comes in as well, sports all over the world. But from the Premier League, you know, Mike from Arsenal and I talked quite a bit about we should join forces more and do more, you know, joined projects, because you could just, it could be so powerful. There's so many eyes on you as a Premier League group. So that's we spoke to various people at the Premier League and sort of said, can we create a working group? Can we all be talking regularly? And there's murmurs of that happening. We've already started some of those talks. There's definitely individuals at all the clubs that are working in this area in various roles. Certainly when we did Pass on Plastic, there was people across kind of operations, catering, there was sport relations. It was different roles, because it was particularly about the catering facility. But with regards to sustainability, depending where that sits in each club, you need those people to come together to share ideas, potentially group together some projects we can work on together. And I think there'll be a lot of action from that. So I'd be encouraging Premier League to look at more joined up projects, if possible, that the clubs are part of.
And from a Basis perspective, would completely agree with that, and that is absolutely what Basis is here to do: facilitate these conversations, get everybody talking, and making sure that sport is actually performing better, but communicating this to fans, to participants, and just pushing all of this out as well. Caroline, Tim, thank you so much. We are out of time. I just need to do a quick wrap up, but a comment very early on from Phil Horton from the RYA, Royal Yachting Association, was that openness is one of the things that he loves about sustainability, and the scope that we have is so huge that we all need to continually learn from each other. And I think we've done that absolutely with you guys today. I made a few notes, just writing down individual words. First one was honesty around when you talked about the external challenge, then responsiveness to actually respond to that and try and make a difference. Openness, exactly what Phil has just said. Urgency, you recognise that this is something we need to be doing now and taking action now rather than leaving it until 2028 or 2029 to hit a 2030 goal. And pride, you said that your staff are now actually proud of the actions that you're taking and they're becoming active. So all of these things are positives, and it all comes from that opportunity that we have to actually talk about these sustainability issues. So I just need to do a quick wrap up. Thanks again to Caroline and Tim. An excellent presentation. Really enjoyed it. I think you did cover pretty much every question that came up. Tim, you actually took my job in fielding all of those questions, so appreciate it. So our next webinar is actually going to be on the 21st of July, which is just 2 days before the opening ceremony for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. And we're going to be focusing on the report that we published just a week or two ago called Rings of Fire, which actually looked at the potential impacts of extreme heat on Olympic sport. That report's already received some global attention, so it should be an interesting session where we're going to hear from some of the authors. We have a members event. Members only event on the 29th of June, where we're going to link up with our colleagues in the Sport Environment Alliance in Australia and New Zealand. So it's a morning start for us, it's an evening for them. But we recently emailed that link out to members, but please do email us if you need some more information on that one. Another members only event is our Members Lounge, which takes place on the 6th of July. And this is an informal opportunity to network with other BASIS members. So again, drop us an email on info@basis.org.uk or take a look at the website. Next day on the 7th of July, we're going to be jointly hosting an event with the Sport and Physical Activity Research Centre at Bournemouth University, all around returning to sport sustainably post-COVID. We're progressing with the results of our consultation. I regularly update you as to where we are. We're going to be announcing some related events to that consultation, and I'll propose our 10-point plan to build back better for a more resilient, more sustainable recovery post-lockdown. We haven't got those completely nailed down. We're working with some other partners to pinpoint when they can be, but we'll be in touch. We need your involvement to actually enhancing that programme that we've pulled together. And finally, but very importantly, 2021 is the 10th birthday for BASIS. We established way back in October 2011, and to mark that decade, we're running some sustainable sport awards at our anniversary event in October. It's going to take place at the Kia Oval, Surrey Cricket Club, on the 19th of October. So please put that date in your diary. Nominations for the awards are absolutely free. Definitely expect the halo effect to be up there pushing for an award, so please do put something in. But we're looking for submissions, big or small, right across the sector, recreational game, professional game, completely free to enter, and all the details again are on the website www.basis.org.uk. So please do go to the website for any information on the things I've just mentioned. And thanks again to Caroline and to Tim. Fantastic presentation, but even more fantastic that a prominent Premier League football club has put together such a comprehensive and ambitious sustainability programme. So thanks again, and thanks to you all for attending, and hopefully see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Bye.